maybe do some vitals. And what we're finding is our ambulance provider, Huron Valley Ambulance, they are struggling with employees as well. They are down a considerable amount. I had a little sit-down meeting the other day with one of their vice presidents, and I was informed that their parent company, Emergent Health Partners, if they could hire people right now, they would hire somewhere in the range of about 300 people. This affects the fire department. So I'll give you a prime example that we've had calls where we'll come out on scene and be waiting for an ambulance company to get there, a vehicle. We could be waiting. We have waited up to an hour. And what we would like to do, what we're starting to do at Chelsea Area Fire Authority, is we've purchased a vehicle that resembles an ambulance. And this will give us the ability to, if the ambulance provider is not going to be there in a timely fashion, that we'll be able to grab the patient and get them to a hospital. And so I'll give you an instance. Last night, for example, we had a stroke victim, and HVA was there, and with some circumstances because of the weather, they actually buried their vehicle in the front yard and the back axle, so they couldn't get out. So now we had to wait for another ambulance that was 17 to 20 minutes away from Jackson County. Well, the roads were awful. If we have this vehicle on scene, we can actually take the patient and just get him to a hospital, and it allows the system to reset. So we're just kind of giving you the lowdown. Each community that we represent, that you're going to start, it's going to take a little time. We have to get this vehicle licensed and get some equipment ordered. But essentially, we're trying to provide a better service than what is currently there. There is a very large meeting tomorrow amongst Washtenaw fire chiefs. Our board, there's 4 chiefs that represent us, 4 chiefs from Livingston County, our med control director, and the EMS agencies, HVA and Livingston EMS. And they're trying to come up with solutions. So I'm just basically, giving you guys all the background information that we are going to get a vehicle out there and go on scene. Now, if HVA gets there and we hand the patient off, wonderful. They take the patient and we go back to the fire station and wait for the next call. But if we get there and they are delayed because they are down so many personnel, we are going to attempt to alleviate the burden on the whole system in Washtenaw County. Hopefully this makes sense to you. This is a completely different approach. I've been here for 4.5 years. My background in my previous fire department, we were a transporting agency. It's basically called fire-based EMS. And it pretty much happens in all of Wayne County and a lot of Oakland County and Macomb County. So for many, many years out here in Washtenaw County, HVA has pretty much had the foothold on it, but because they are struggling so much, it is a glaring issue right now in this county. So are there any questions or anything? I kind of gave you the Cliff's notes of everything, but I just wanted to let you guys know that there will be a vehicle coming out, hopefully within 6 to 8 weeks by the time we get everything ordered and get it licensed.
All right. Are they transporting to Chelsea or to U of M or both?
So a lot of it depends on protocols. So let's say it's a major trauma case. Well, Chelsea Hospital does not really have the resources for that. If it's a burn victim, we would get down to U of M. But if it's a typical, maybe fell out of bed, slips, twisted an ankle, maybe a diabetic issue that is stabilized. So, we have to almost evaluate each patient. The goal for us, for the most part, would try to get them to Chelsea Hospital, get them stabilized. And then if there's really a need to transfer them to U of M, St. Joe, wherever, then that would be the next goal. But right now the system it's getting worse. And that's why they're having this meeting tomorrow. They have to start coming up with solutions because it's not working. The last thing we want to do is be standing in your house with a medical emergency and waiting and waiting and waiting when there's a possibility that we can alleviate that situation. Does that mean that we're going to get you necessarily better care because we're not paramedics? But that's not the goal right now. The goal is to not having vehicles flying all around our county or waiting 20 minutes, 30 minutes or more for a vehicle coming from U of M hospital because they're clearing from the previous call. There's been a misconception for years that, well, we have our own vehicle right here in Chelsea. Well, we do, but if they take one patient, then now we're waiting on a vehicle from somewhere else. So hopefully the meeting tomorrow amongst the chiefs that represent both agencies, Med Control, they're going to start coming up with maybe some solutions or some better dialogue and ways to approach this problem. But internally in our department, we are doing what we believe is the next best step.
All right, does anybody on the board have any questions for the chief? Hi, Sandy.
So it sounds like by purchasing a vehicle, I mean, you're aware of what's going on, not just in our community, but a much larger area. So you're trying to get kind of a jump to get ahead of the game a little bit.
Yeah, so to speak. So there's a couple of phases to this. This first phase is, yes, get the vehicle and be able to at least help the cause. So if we are waiting a certain amount of time, we have the ability to take, let's say we came to your house, we would have the ability to say, listen, we're waiting an hour, hop in the fire truck. It just happened recently in the city of Ann Arbor. A 2-year-old got shot in the head. That's a very populated area. They get a lot of ambulances in that area. They were still waiting approximately 30 to 40 minutes for an ambulance. So they took this 2-year-old little boy and put him in the back of the battalion chief vehicle and got him down to the hospital. It worked, but I certainly, if I'm coming to your house, I would prefer to put you on a comfortable stretcher and take you in a more, I wouldn't say it's a comfortable ride. It's Michigan roads. It's in the back of a big box truck, but nonetheless, it's a better ride than just say, hey, hop up in this fire truck. And we believe this is part of the next system approach. The city of Ann Arbor is moving very heavily towards this with Chief Kennedy. Him and I have a lot of conversations. And yeah, we believe this is the next step. Now, somewhere down the road, if our ambulance system and Livingston and all these other ambulance systems that provide 911 service, if they can't get better, then we might start taking the approach of becoming an official transporting agency. That's a little bit down the road, but at least this is a step maybe in that direction.
And then at that time, would you add paramedics to your staff?
Possibly.
Or do you think
the part of the problem with paramedics, and I'm a paramedic, so I'm kind of giving you a background with the EMS side of things. Paramedics, to get your license now, you're going for about 2 years of schooling. And what they're finding is that many of the people are okay with that initially, but somewhere down the road, they get road burnout. They want better conditions. So there's a way of transitioning from a paramedic license over to a nursing degree. And then they can go work in a hospital in a more controlled environment, get better pay. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. I would love to have paramedics, but I can see the writing on the wall that it's just you are competing for it, not just in this county, but you're competing against Wayne County, Oakland County, Jackson County. And I just don't know if ultimately it's worth it. I hate to say it that way, because if you can save one life with ALS, drugs, medicine, then it is worth it. But it's that industry they're falling short here, and we don't know how to really fix it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathleen?
You're muted, Kathy.
she can.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Osborne, I saw you there. And Patrick, I know you've been waiting too, and we'll get you next, but I think this probably goes with the chief's comments.
I'm on the CAFA board, and let me interject. We've been working on this for a couple years, and it's just getting worse. The board's job is, of course, to keep an eye on the money. At this point, this is not going to cost us any additional money. We needed a new rescue squad. We managed to find a used one. The board approved 130,000. We found a used one for less than half that. That's got very low miles, fill the need perfectly. Down the road, if we became a complete licensed transporting agency, our plan would be to bill insurance companies for the service. Our residents would not get a bill. If they had no insurance, or if their insurance didn't cover the total cost, they would not get a bill. So our billing estimate is that it would cover about 80% of the cost of total transport. So we're not looking, from the bean counter's perspective, at this point, we don't see any significant increase in cost to our citizens. And yet we're going to fill a vital need. We had a broken hip the other day, confirmed fracture hip, which hopefully none of you have had, but it's extremely painful. They waited over an hour for an ambulance. So we're here to serve our community, and we feel this move is a step in that direction. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, well, if there's no other questions for the board right now, I want to thank both of you for coming and bringing this up, and we'll just keep our listening ears on for any future movement on it. And I'm sure Mr. Kosick will keep us updated on that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Patrick's hand up next.
Yes, thank you. And first of all, thanks to CAFA for really stepping up to meet the need here. I had three other comments. One is I'm wondering when the Planning Commission is going to take up the open space ordinance with Rebecca Harvey. And I'm hoping that when the request goes to the Planning Commission, it can have some timing attached to it, so that there's some expectation of timeliness in their work. In one form or another, this has been going on for almost 3 years now, and that you might understand why I have concerns that it might last another year or something. I certainly hope it doesn't, but the board should be able to at least ask for some timeliness. Second issue I wanted to comment about is about the marijuana. I actually don't have a position really about whether I think there should be marijuana businesses or not in the township. I don't, I don't want to control what other people do with their property. But I hope that we resolve this issue and come to some kind of conclusion on it. I think it could be good or bad. I understand we have to really evaluate the impact that any particular business has on its neighbors and just provide whatever reasonable safeguards we need to make sure that they're not doing damage to any of the neighboring residents in the township in various ways, whether it smells or whatever. And I hope, I just hope it's decided on that basis. Are you hurting anybody or not? I understand the township can stand to gain some revenue too, which should be the basis of, part of the decision, but basically just keep the peace with the residents, and don't make the safeguards too onerous either, because then you're just effectively banning it. So the third thing is I want to express support for the idea of allocating the DPW heads' pay by water and sewer separately. I think it's just simply the right thing to do, since the funds are separate and the money is flowing into the funds from separate places. It ought to be divided, especially when the funds are coming into the water side from all the taxpayers. So all the taxpayers have an interest in making sure that the funds allocated for water are just paying for water. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Next, I see David Reinhardt with his hand up.
Hello there. I just wanted to really emphasize what a great meeting that was last Tuesday. And I believe, Kathy, you spearheaded that with the Planning Commission, the Zoning Appeals Board, and our consultant who is going to work with the Planning Commission. And I also want to acknowledge Dawn and Carol and David, and I'm sure there are others, that's who I'm recalling right now, who are opening their ears and listening to what's out there. And I feel like there's some cohesiveness coming together here, which the residents really appreciate. And I think the board and the township needs to function as a whole. It was just a great sign. And I'm going to leave it at that. It was a great thing. So thanks a lot for doing that.
Yeah, thank you, David. I thought it was a great meeting too. And I've heard much the same from almost everyone who attended. So that was good. All right, anyone else? I don't see any other hands raised. Okay. All right, well, then we will move on to the consent agenda, which contains the minutes, presentation of bills, any correspondence, committee, board, and department reports.
I had a question on the financials. I can approve the consent agenda and just had one question on presentation of bills. So
Okay, do you want to ask that now, or do you want to? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry.
just the question of the Danny Very. It looks like, did we overcharge him on trust and agency? And so we refunded back? Is that what happened there? Because there's like $180 some thousand went to Danny Very.
So maybe Amanda can address this, but I believe this is refunding of his performance bond as
Correct.
he's getting the roads in and the sewer in. Our engineer, Sue goes out and says, yes, they're done. You can release those funds. Initially, he wanted us to pay his contractors. And we did that one time and the Woodhill group didn't like that. The agreement does say we will reimburse Mr. Very and then he pays his contractors. So that represents a pretty good chunk of his project that he's completed.
Yeah, I think that was, and I don't have it in front of me. We had to go back to the development agreement and make sure we look through what this was referring to. He'll send us an invoice for his contractors, and then we have to go and make sure that Sue okays that amount. So that, Kurt, you're saying the 165,000, that was for his roads. And I think that covered, I don't remember what portion that covered. I just don't have it in front of me, but it was okayed by Sue.
Does that mean at one point we actually collected 165,000 from him?
Yes, yep. We collected a total of what, 800,000, I think,
A
initially.
little over 800,000, yeah, and he
Right.
wrote us a check, he and his partner each wrote us a check
Okay.
for half of that. As
Okay, so
opposed to like a, line of credit or, from a bank.
Okay, so he's not going through a bonding agency. He's posting his own. Okay,
Right.
and then I move to approve the consent agenda.
All
I'll
right,
second.
okay, motion by Kurt, supported by Rod. Is there any discussion? All right, otherwise we'll do roll call vote. Amanda,
Yes.
Sandy,
Unmute.
was that yes, Sandy?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Kurt,
Yes.
Rod,
Yes.
and myself, yes, motion carries. All right, now we're moving on to the regular agenda. First up is the update on the marijuana businesses. I know Sandy did some work on this and sent some great information around to everyone from the city clerk in Ann Arbor and a police chief. You want to talk about that?
Yes, I would. So I had an email conversation with Jacqueline Beaudry, who's the city clerk of Ann Arbor, with Robin Connor, who's the city clerk in Adrian. I had phone conversations with Vince Emmerich, who's the chief of police in Adrian, and Eric Massengill, who's the fire chief in Adrian. Folks in Adrian are wonderful to talk to because they jumped as soon as it became legal, they jumped right on it because they're a small city and it has been very helpful to them in any number of ways. And having, I think, all of the different businesses that are associated with the cannabis industry. I know that there were a number of questions that were emailed to me, and I didn't specifically ask those questions in those words because the document that we got from the deputy chief in Adrian really addresses a lot of those issues. And so one of them was, people are so concerned about a negative impact on the community by any of these cannabis related businesses. The only one that I have heard is for a grow business that is outside. When the plant blooms, it has an odor. For the business, the grow facilities that are inside, it's really not a problem because they have air cleaners. So they have not had, so Adrian has not had any problems with the businesses or their employees. There is a lot of money associated with the cannabis industry, and the business owners go out of their way to act responsibly like any other legitimate business. In fact, they probably work a little harder as they try to grow acceptance and become normalized into the community. We have not seen a great boost in that's operating while under the influence driving related to marijuana either. We frequently use a DRE, which is a drug recognition expert from a neighboring agency, and the explosion of drugged driving we all expected has not materialized. In a city of 21,000 residents and 2 residential colleges, we are seeing consistent OWID arrests less than once a month since 2016. And OWID is operating while under the influence of drugs. So this is surprising information because we all have an agenda, or we have thoughts in our head about what we think it's going to be like, and it doesn't sound like that at all. He said, overall, I really doubt that any greater number of people are buying and using marijuana now than they were before the law changed. The only difference is that the legitimization of marijuana has moved the sales out of residences into storefronts. which is very telling. I also mentioned to him that there had been a group of, I was not present when this group attended the Board of Trustees meeting, but there were 5 people who came to talk to the board to apparently to try to dissuade the board of to allow any cannabis related industries. One of those speakers was an employee of the state police. Mind you, this person did not represent the state police. What you got from that person was his opinion, not the state police. And guess what? That same group went to Adrian. They had somebody from the state police and 4 other people who came and talked to them about the unintended consequences. And I asked that point blank to the police chief, and he said, the unintended consequences that we have had to deal with are lawsuits that they got into because of the way they decided to issue the licenses. They had a lottery, and that did not go well. They were sued, I don't know by how many people. But remember, this was really early on in the process, and the state didn't know anything and was no help either. So they just, Adrian just sort of jumped in with both feet and said, well, we're going to do this. And then they find out, oh, maybe not, we shouldn't have done that. So everyone that I have spoken to said, make sure you work with your attorney and that you do things the right way so that you don't end up with lawsuits because you didn't really follow the rules. And there are many, many, many rules associated with the cannabis industry. What else? Oh, somebody had asked the question, so where do you think the industry is going to go? So in Adrian, there's like a small, there's a shopping mall that is either has no stores that are open anymore or 1 store. And it's, you know, it's derelict. And so there is somebody, you know, from another state who wants to purchase that mall and turn it into all things marijuana. And the chief told me that, you know, at the last council meeting, people who have been very supportive of the industry have said, well, I'm not sure that we really want to be that, you know, that go-to destination. So they're going to have to think about how big they want to get. But he also gave me the number of businesses they have and some other information that I included in the email that I sent you all. But I think the responses that I have gotten from the people that I spoke to were surprisingly, no, not surprisingly. They were all positive. The only negative thing is you're going to have people who are going to try to skip out without paying for product. And there are also going to be people trying to break in. Well, that happens in every business there is. Somebody wants something for nothing. And there's no increase in any of that sort of thing in the community. And as we mentioned, those of Rod and Kurt and I who visited the businesses in Adrian, they protect their product. They have an enormous investment in this, in their business. And they know that people are going to want to try to get in and steal it or whatever, but it just doesn't happen because they have cameras everywhere. And in fact, in Adrian, they have provided videotape to help with other crime in the neighborhood. So it sounds exceptionally positive. As far as what the community gets, MTA in the last couple of months really gave us a good idea about what to expect. And it took the state a very, 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 very long time before they sent any money to any of the communities that have cannabis industries. I think this is, I am comfortable in the on-site visit and the research that I have done. I think that we should think about moving forward with this in our township.
All right. Well, thank you for doing all that research, Sandy. That was a lot of legwork and reaching out to people. We appreciate that. Any board members have any comments on this right now?
I agree with Sandy totally.
So it sounds to me like I'd like to move to engage legal counsel on drafting an ordinance for, I guess, marijuana.
I'll second that.
So Kurt, that was to engage and I know I have a bad habit of still jotting everything down as though I were still the clerk. But a move to engage legal counsel to, what was the rest of the motion?
Guide in creating a marijuana ordinance for Sylvan Township.
Okay,
Just as additional discussion. In Adrian, they warned us, they said, don't create an ordinance that repeats everything that's done that the state has already said you have to do. And probably treat medical and adult as the same. So there's going to be some work to do there, but you know, I think we're at the point where we can start that process and see what it looks like.
okay. All right, so that was a motion by Kurt and supported by Rod. Is there any comments? I'm in support of this. I think, and I still have a suspicion that we would only receive the portion of the tax proceeds. I think we maybe all, if we have a commercial establishment here, but certainly getting guidance from our attorney will help us fill in any gaps, any lapse in knowledge that we have. So are we ready to take a vote on it?
I definitely think that we'll need to pay attention to, as everybody, pay attention to the details to decide what we want to allow. That's really going to be important. And even where we might want to allow it and not allow it, which will come down to zoning.
Right. And the attorney can guide us because I'm sure there'll be a zoning portion. If it has to go through planning commission, that's going to be work for them too. Okay, so the motion from Kurt supported by Rod. I will do a roll call vote. Sandy,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes,
Rod,
Yes,
Kurt,
Yes.
Kathy, yes. Motion carries. All right. I think I'm going to have a discussion with Mr. Thal tomorrow so I can mention to him this vote tonight and see if he can begin his guidance. Next on the agenda is the sewer resolution. I think, speaking for myself, I think in terms of our priorities, especially in light of the joint meeting that we had, I think we have a lot on our plate. And unless someone is willing to and has the time to really engage all the people that are needed to have this conversation, I'm inclined to remove this from the agenda right now. It's been on here for a while and I don't think we've had any progress. But I'm, of course, anyone on the board, if we feel strongly it should be on there still. It just feels like we see it every month and it's not a top priority. So.
I agree, Kathy.
yep, I agree too.
Okay, well, then, just so we have a motion, I'm gonna make a motion to remove the sewer resolution from unfinished business at this time.
I'll support that.
All right. Any discussion? All right, then we'll do a roll call vote. Amanda,
Yes,
Sandy? Yes. Rod,
Yes,
Kurt?
Yes.
All right, Kathy, yes. Motion carried. It's not to say we can't bring it up in the future. Oh, we still have open space preservation ordinance on there. But that really, last time we made a motion to take that to the planning commission, so unless anyone can think of anything, any reason it was on here, I think it might have just been a carryover. Yes,
Yes.
okay. And I believe, I know Carol has reached out to Ms. Harvey to see if she'd be able to attend the planning commission meeting in December. I think it's the 16th. So that communication has been sent. I'm not sure if she's responded yet, but that would be an ideal time for that. All right, moving on to the National Flood Insurance Program. I attended a webinar and been talking to some different people. According to the webinar, you know, it doesn't cost the township anything. This would allow residents who are in a flood zone to purchase flood insurance. If you are in a flood zone and you want to purchase flood insurance and your township, your municipality doesn't participate, you will not be able to purchase the insurance. Our attorney said he didn't see a reason why anyone would not join this program. I know that there is some burden on the construction agency because the building official has special requirements when approving a building or inspecting a building in a floodplain, but they do it for other municipalities, so. I looked, it looked like there's a national floodplain map that I can send to you guys. You have to, you know, log in and really zoom in. I did see Sylvan Township and it did look like there's a portion of Sylvan almost all along Letts Creek that is in this floodplain area. So originally we were thinking, well, if it's the floodplain's in the middle of a farm field, maybe it's not so important, but it looked like it ran down. I'm not sure if I sent that to you. But I can send a link if you're interested in looking. So if it's something the board wants to pursue, we would need to create an ordinance, which I think I sent Lima's last time. It's 2-page. It's not very onerous. A resolution and an application that we would need to submit.
So if
So-
we have residents in a floodplain area, that only makes sense that we would join that program. So what are the next steps for us to pursue that?
I think the next steps would be to get that documentation together, to get an application ready. There's a sample resolution. There may be a sample ordinance also online, but we have Lima's, you know, that was passed. We could have Mr. Thal see if he could take a quick look at it and make sure that's up to snuff. But that would be the next step if the board feels like that's something that, you know, we would want to pursue, and I can bring that to probably January's meeting, although December's a funny month.
I support that for sure.
All right, then I'll do that. Then it sounds like and it doesn't seem like it's going to be a huge task since there's sample documents out there already, and work on an ordinance and bring that forward for voting on. Does that work for everyone? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next, we have the discussion of taking payments online for services. And I know Amanda did some checking on this with some neighboring communities.
Did everybody get the email I sent today? So I reached out to the local clerks and I actually received some more feedback as the day went on, and I didn't have time to send it. But the two services they use, obviously you saw Invoice Cloud and then Point and Pay. Point and Pay is used by the other, so I have to look in my email to see who responded. So Point and Pay is used by Ann Arbor Charter Township and Dexter Township as well. And the reason it looks like they're probably using these, they're charged a maintenance fee based on volume. So the higher the volume, the less the maintenance fee. Point and Pay said that it's it's a 500, well, it's actually a $2,000 startup, but don't let that number scare you. It's $500 to set it up, and then they charge $50 every month to fulfill that. But they also waive that if you reach a certain threshold for volume. They work with BSNA, and so the different municipalities, some are taking payments for taxes, and some are taking them for permits, utilities. I mean, here in Sylvan, obviously, I think utilities would be a big thing for the sewer and water authority, and then permits, et cetera. I think we need to do some more research, though. Let me back up. So the city of Chelsea uses Invoice Cloud, and I think you saw that. That's $100 a month maintenance fee, but that's also based on volume, and they have a lot of electric bills and a lot of water bills and a lot of sewer bills. So I'm sure that $100 maintenance fee would be higher for us if we were using them. And then there were the other fees associated with that. Now, Kurt, if you would answer for me, when you pay your sewer bill, you said that it's an automatic deposit. So how does that work?
Yeah, it's set up through the Water and Sewer Authority.
Is it through BSNA?
Rod could probably tell you exactly how it's done.
It's an ACH.
An ACH. Okay.
Which is what, automatic?
It's done through the bank.
It's like an automatic, it's like a check, correct? Isn't that correct? It's like when you're paying by check.
Right, so no fees
Okay.
associated with it.
There are no fees. So Rod, do we accept that for sewer and water bills?
Yes,
Okay.
At the bank can do that. Is that correct? I mean,
Yes.
people don't pay the bills at our place. They pay it at the bank.
they pay them at the bank, and we continue to get them put in the Dropbox and in the mail. Even though they're
Right.
supposed to pay them at the bank. they
Right.
don't.
Mhm.
If I may interject, it works really well, the ACH, the automatic that Kurt takes advantage of. There's just a big glob of money that shows up and everything is taken care of. So it works really well right now.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for that perspective, Dave, from your end, from on that sort of receiving end of the payments when they come through electronically.
Mhm. Well, it was interesting that Laura Kaiser from the city of Chelsea said that, since they've offered it last December, that they've had more and more people use it. So I do think that is going to be the trend, that if it's offered, I mean, she was surprised, and I know, Rod, how you feel about taxes, just as far as taxes, she was surprised to see people willing to pay that 3.25% on top of their tax bill, but people do it. And then Kristen Burke from Linden Township, the treasurer, said that she had people come in and who could not afford to pay their taxes and needed to put it on a credit card. So they were still coming into the township hall, but that allowed them to pay their taxes on time if they could put it on their credit card. I think that's valuable.
Yeah, I agree. And I know Carol showed me, I think, 2 envelopes in the past where people are paying to overnight or FedEx their checks for permits and things like that. So for some things, some people are willing to pay extra. And it would probably be less on a transaction fee than what they're paying to, expedite through the mail. So
And
that's
Kathy,
interesting.
Kathy, I
Yeah, go
know you said you spoke with STG regarding what they, what's asking them for some guidance. And at this point, we still don't have any guidance from them as far as what they're
No.
utilizing on their platforms.
No, I don't, but I know that when we talked originally, they build websites for lots of different entities and municipalities, and they had experience through their lens, experience with different providers. So I meant to email Kyle today, I didn't get to it. So I will email him and ask him, what their take is, if they have a preference or anything, to see what their preference is.
Point and Pay is the one that's used a lot.
Point and Pay.
Yes, I will agree, Rod, with those that, the feedback that I received today, Point and Pay was the most used for sure. The fees are, it sounds like the fees are less. I mean, we're smaller, and again, it's all volume based. So, we're
Mhm.
smaller, but again, as we build out the sewer and water area, and we know it's coming because we have the developments in front of us, we'll see that volume increase.
And when I looked at your examples of what it cost, I guess I was a little bit floored. I hadn't considered how much that would, but on a $1,500 tax bill, it's a $43 fee.
Yeah.
Mhm. Right.
But, Laura
Yeah.
Kaiser said people pay it in the city.
Well, I've been in lots of different places in my life, and I could have seen maybe a time where, if it's that or, getting a late fee, or worse yet, having to go to the county, depending where you're at. I could see that people would do that. And we don't need to second guess or wonder how people pay their bills. I'm sure we just would want to see them paid. So whether it's on credit card, however people need to do it. I think it would be a nice service. It sounds like other places around us are doing it already, so it's kind of nice not to be the prototype or something. We can kind of lean on them for information and advice. So I can follow up with Kyle unless, anybody here feels like, maybe if with the information we have that maybe Point and Pay is the way to go, or do we want to wait and gather some more information?
Well, I can reach out to the representative I did today and just get some more information from him,
Okay.
because I sense that they're going to look at each municipality and then give you, a tailored idea of
Right.
what it would cost. Just
Okay.
because again, it has to do with volume. So I certainly can do that and then get some more information. That sounds good to everybody.
Oh, yeah. And
Yep.
asking Kyle, because I think in the beginning he mentioned a couple and that just went right over my head because I wasn't familiar with anything. So ask him if has any experience with something to avoid.
Good question to ask. Okay. Okay, thank you, Amanda, for your work on that topic. Does anybody on the board have any other comments on that before we move on? All right. All right, the updated fee schedule, I still don't have information on that. I apologize. Carol and I have just been having a very difficult time to sit down and come up with it, but we've been talking. So maybe as we're budgeting and kind of looking at all these numbers, it's a good time to maybe fold that in. So I have nothing on that right now. Does anyone have any comments on that? Okay, we'll just move on. All right, next is Sylvan Township Citizen of the Year. We had one nomination. And I forwarded it to everyone. So if we have more than one, we need to assign numbers and letters. But since it's just the one, I will make a motion that we approve the nominee for Sylvan Township 2021 Citizen of the Year.
That supports.
All right. Was there any board discussion, questions? All right. We'll do a roll call vote. Amanda,
Yes.
Sandy, Kurt,
Yes.
Rod,
Yes.
Kathy, yes. So motion carried. We will work on getting the things ready for presentation at the January meeting. Unfortunately, I reached out to the gentleman who usually does our awards and our etching, and I got an auto responder that he has a new job. And so he's not taking new clients. I don't know if we're considered new or not. But once I hear back from him, I may need suggestions from the board if anybody knows someone who does etching and things like that. All right, the DPW administrator pay allocation. So this is something that I know the Water and Sewer Authority is agreeable to. They Chair Pam Burns of the authority wanted to get more concrete information regarding the amount of time that Bob spends on sewer items versus water. And so, you know, he says that most of it is, but he's been keeping track for the past couple weeks. And I thought maybe we could get, you know, a couple weeks worth of information and then maybe extrapolate that and come up with a number with the authority. So as far as I know, Bob's still keeping track. Rod, when is the next sewer authority meeting? Do you know offhand?
It's the third Wednesday, I believe.
Third Wednesday. Are you guys meeting in, okay. And you're meeting in December, as far as you
Yes.
know? Okay.
Yes. we know.
Okay. Then perhaps at that time, Bob will have a number together. I mean, if the Water and Sewer Authority is going to be paying for his time, they're the ones who will have to be more agreeable than us. So I'll try to attend that meeting and make sure Bob brings his numbers and we can get this wrapped up and have them putting some money towards that.
Yes, the 15th.
The 15th, okay. Awesome, thanks. All right, is there any board discussion on that? All right, we'll move along. Franchise agreement with the city of Chelsea. So I received a draft of this agreement. Was it this morning? I think it was, no, it was yesterday, from Mr. Thal. And it's several pages, and he really wanted to, instead of doing a real simple agreement, do something a little bit more formal, because the franchise agreement on Chelsea's books doesn't have the legal description in there. So it's a several page document. It pretty much just reiterates what is in the franchise agreement. I had some questions. In the draft, he was only referring to water. And to my knowledge, we're going to be providing water and sewer services to that portion. So that would need to be revised. And then there was also some mention of publishing the agreement, which I wasn't sure we needed to do. And he said he would look into that more. So there were a couple items. They should be easy items for him to brush up. The meat of the document is finished. So I sent that back to him with my comments. He's going to work on it. And again, we're talking tomorrow. So hopefully we can get that over to the city. I know Sean LaFear of Westchester has contacted me a couple times. They're anxious. They can't get onto the city council planning commission agenda until there's an agreement in place, I believe is what he said. So he's anxious. So we will get this tidied up and have all the proper words there. And then we can give it to the city and bring it to our board, and we'll approve it and be able to move forward with that. Does anybody have any questions on that item? I wish I had a document for you today, but I don't. Okay. Also, one thing I just want to mention real quick, I think that was on our old business last time, was the transfer of taps agreement. And so that's not on here this time, but we took care of that, and the document I know Rod was there and acted as notary for my signature and Mr. Gotcha's signature. So that has been taken care of. Just want to let the board know about that. All right, one item under new business, which is boards and commissions. We had a few people, Susan's really good about making sure, going through our boards and commissions list to make sure we have updated people. So two of them, so I'm sure the board mostly knows this, but I'll just mention this for the public who may not know. All of our boards and commissions operate, the board considers different applicants and will approve them. For the planning commission, it works upon the recommendation of the supervisor to the board. So there are two members here on planning commission. Because those are sort of distinct, I'm going to make them, and I have spoken to, it's David Seitz and Mike Van Buren. And I've spoken to them both, and they are both willing to continue on the planning commission. So I will recommend to the board that David Seitz return for a 3-year term to expire December 2024, and Mike Van Buren return for a 3-year term to expire December 2024. So those are my recommendations. Do we want to approve this list altogether or separately? I can read them for the public. I don't know if we had a board packet online. Other than the planning commission members, we have reappointment of David Jorgensen to the Board of Review for a 2-year term to expire August 2023. Reappointing Amanda Nimke Ballard to the Construction Agency Board with a 5-year term to expire April 2026. Reappointing Kurt Kosick to the Chelsea Area Fire Authority Board for a 5-year term to expire November 2026. Appointing Rod Branham to an alternate position on the Fire Authority, 5-year term to expire November 2026. And then also, it looks like the Sewer and Water Authority members are up for reappointment. That would be Rod Branham, a 3-year term to expire December 2024. Carrie Franks to the Sylvan Township Water and Sewer Authority, 3-year term to expire April 2024. And Kurt Kosick as an alternate on the Sylvan Township Water and Sewer Authority, 3-year term to expire December 2024. So that is the list of people who will be who are up for reappointment.
Kurt will move to approve the appointments as listed in the board packet.
Rod will support.
All right. All right. Any board discussion or questions? All right, then we will do a roll call vote. Amanda? Oh, I think you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Sandy?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Rod?
Yes.
Okay, Kathy, yes. And motion carries. All right, that is the business of our agenda tonight. I have a couple things I want to comment on, but I'll wait till the trustee member comment portion. So we have our second public comment right now. Is there anyone from the Dave Reinhardt?
Yes, hi again. One, I wanted to mention that I really appreciate Sandy's research into the marijuana segment. This is a really bad euphemism to use here, but there's a lot of people crying fire when all there is smoke. And I think she's kind of ferreted some of that out via Adrian. And that I think it's great. And I guess that's the last comment. I wanted to make sure that was understood, and I really appreciate what Sandy did. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Dave. Any other public comment? Oh, I thought I saw a hand. There it is, Patrick.
Yeah, I wasn't going to comment, but just kind of piggybacking on what Dave Reinhardt said about the marijuana. I too am pleased with the results of the research, especially with the experience of the people in Adrian, which we can rely on. I would urge the board to communicate to the lawyer who's drafting the ordinance to try to keep it as simple as possible. Because we could get bogged down in bureaucracy and take on another big bunch of administrative tasks that we don't need if we're not careful. Albert Einstein has been quoted as saying, keep everything as simple as possible, but no simpler. So there's a balance there someplace. I mean, I saw what was happening with the short-term rental ordinance, and you could fall down on either side of being too complicated or too lax. But it sounds like most of the marijuana businesses in Adrian are good players, and we should expect that in Sullivan with just the appropriate regulations that are really needed to keep it that way. Thank you.
Great. Any other public comment? All right. All right, Board of Trustee member comments. I wanted to mention, I reached out to the board and told that there was a possibility that we may need to have a special meeting to approve the Chelsea Square development agreement. It was intended to be on the agenda tonight and was not ready. Since that time, our Sue Dickinson, our engineer, reviewed the plans, had multiple pages that needed to be addressed. So their engineers have taken it back and are reworking some things. And then once that's done, it needs to go back to Sue again for her review again. And we felt even, with the projects, Sue is not our exclusive engineer. She has a company she works for and other clients. So they were saying, we don't believe at this time the development agreement will be ready in December. So we're looking at approving it at the January 4th meeting, which is just barely into January. We come back and flip the calendar. We have a board meeting. So hopefully it won't impact them too much. Carol has communicated with Jack Knowles from that project, and he understands the situation and the timing. So his people are going to work on it and get it with Sue. We should have that document hopefully by the 21st, because we'll be putting together our agenda for January a little earlier because the office is closed that final week in December. So I wanted to let everyone know that I had already kind of polled the board on what time people would be available. And next Tuesday, December 14th was a time that people were available. So we were also discussing doing like a preliminary budget meeting. So we won't need to have a special meeting. We could have a preliminary budget meeting. When Rod and I were talking about it in the office, he said, wow, I think this would be the earliest we've ever started on the budget. So, that's not a bad thing. But it was funny when we talked about it. It kind of surprised me. I thought, yeah, you're right. We usually don't start till January. So if people have busy Decembers and they don't want to, that's okay too. I do think it might be fruitful to have a real preliminary meeting to look at it. I don't have numbers back from everyone's department, solid numbers to plug in. But if the board feels like it would be a good idea to get together, I did ask Kimberly Haynes, our accountant, and she would be available next week. Also remembering that December, the end of this year at right now, is the only time that we are afforded to meet remotely. So that's there too. So what does the board think? Do we want to have a preliminary budget meeting next week? Or do we want to wait until January? Again, we need to have the budget in place at April 1st so we can start cutting checks. Normally, we would approve it at the March meeting and we would put it out to the people in February. So at any point in those months in the past, we have had special meetings as necessary to get it approved. But what are the board's thoughts on that?
Kurt, I would probably wait till January. Just my thoughts. Would you do the work session at the township hall? Or would you try to do it via Zoom?
Well, if we do it in January, as of right now, the Washtenaw County local state of emergency that allows us to meet via Zoom expires at the end of the year. So if we wait until January, they would be in-person meetings. Right now I understand Senator Jeff Irwin has introduced legislation to extend the ability to meet remotely and be in compliance with Open Meetings Act through March of next year. But I haven't heard any action on that item, and there's really only a couple months left in December, I think, when decisions are made. So that's a bit of a long shot. So if we wait until January, we would be meeting in person. Sandy, Rod?
I'm
Amanda?
okay either way. I mean, it's not a big deal to me. If you want to do it the 14th, that's fine, or we can wait.
I agree, Rod. I mean, because this is my first year, I'm fine meeting on the 14th, just because it's good for me to start to go through this process. Earlier, the better for me.
Well, and
Getting a jump on it is a good idea.
getting a jump on it.
Yeah.
All right. So, and I think, we could really do just a real quick look at, and if our accountant can be there with us, just projections for revenues. I'm still going to be gathering information from departments. So maybe it would just be sort of a skeletal look at what's there. In the past, I don't think the process needs to necessarily stay the way we've done it in the past. Sometimes we've gotten together in the past and we start from the beginning and we talk about every item as we go through, and we talk about the assessor's department and how much they need for these things. And my hope this year was that we could really draw that information from the department. So the assessor would tell us, this is what I want for the assessing department. We don't have that many different, GL code lines or categories that we draw from. So I'm hoping that we can have a smoother process this year than we've had maybe in the past, a little bit expedited, where we're really drawing from departments. This is what the assessor needs. This is what the clerk needs. And then there's a couple departments like general government where we would need to come together and come up with those numbers. And part of that, as I was looking at the budget last night, is gathering information from contracts. How much we are going to budget for our copier is going to require we go into our contract and look at the monthly amount and multiply that by 12. So some of that is, we will need to do. Hopefully we can do it by next week. If not, those are numbers that we can plug in January. So I'm inclined to call a special meeting for Tuesday. Boy, I can't believe I'm saying that. The 14th, and hopefully it will be quick. I'm going to take advantage of our Zoom capabilities right now. It will be easier for our accountant to attend the meeting if she's not driving, from her home. And so let's see, is 7 p.m. good? Do we want to do 6 p.m.? Anybody have an opinion on that?
7
Either way, it's
p.m.
fine with me.
Okay,
7 p.m. works good for me.
7.
Mhm.
Okay, that's our standard time. So I'll call a special meeting for 7 p.m. It'll be a work session. We won't be making any decisions, but just to look at the budget. This is our first year with our new accountant. I know she has, ideas about how the budget should be made. She appreciated really getting the information from the departments, left information into us. So she liked that idea. So it probably will be pretty short because I think it'll just be real quick and preliminary. But I think it'll be worthwhile. So Amanda I'll work with you and we'll get a notice out for Tuesday, December 14th at 7 PM.
Do you want to just use the board Zoom link? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah. Yes, I see a hand, Patrick. Oh, I think you're muted.
Oh,
you go.
I'm muted, unmuted, back and forth. I just had a quick thought since you're having a special meeting. It's really a question. Does any more funding need to be approved for Rebecca Harvey if she may come to the planning commission meeting this month?
I don't think so because she had budgeted 3 hours of meeting time and, her preliminary review. I think she's going to be okay, but I believe Carol, thought about that question and asked it, but I think we're still within her scope of services that she provided early on.
Yeah, I was just thinking if there was more funding that needed to be allocated, it could be taken up next Tuesday, just in case. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. And also it's good, maybe to come together while that joint session is fresh in our minds too. And we can talk a little bit about, what types of things we feel like we could tackle. I know there's a lot of talk about ordinances and really ordinances are coming from the planning commission. A lot of times they do the work. And so, in discussing it with Carol, she was saying, the planning commission meets once a month at best. That's 12 meetings a year. And they have projects and other things that come up. So how many things can we realistically, how many ordinances do we realistically think the planning commission can take? And maybe 3. And then what from our meeting do we feel like was something that we consistently heard that we would want to prioritize? So that's, good discussions we can have around budget and what we might want to put into the budget next year to what goals are reasonable, I guess.
Yeah. Also keep in mind that some of the ordinances are police power ordinances. So some of that can be done by
Right.
the board in parallel with the planning commission addressing the zoning ordinances, perhaps. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right. Depending what they are. I felt like almost all of them had a zoning aspect, but. Okay, does any other board of trustees have comments tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Amy.
Sandy.
Since next year is an election year, and I mentioned when I first got on the board that I think we need to look at bringing back our own recycling bins in Sylvan Township. The recycling bin that appears to be in Sylvan Township on M52 at Vogel's actually belongs to Linden Township. The bin was at North Lake Store and people kept throwing garbage in it, so they moved it down to Vogel's. The recycling bins that are on Manchester belong to the city of Chelsea. The cost per household is less than $30 per year, attached, I think, to their tax bill. Bridgewater Township is not a member of that group, so they don't have to be responsible for any improvements to the Western Washtenaw Recycling Authority. They're just a customer. So all of the other townships that are a part of that are members and would share in any upgrades or any expenses. So we can join as, I've forgotten the term, just as a user and not as an actual member of that particular group. And I would like to see us do that. And it is my understanding then that has to be on the ballot and people have to vote for it. But I have no idea what any steps are in making that a reality.
Well, Sandy, as I'm learning more about elections, that's a big, that's a lot, that's a big task for that to be put to the ballot. I would assume, Kathy, that would be in the spring if we, I mean, the spring or the next general election.
Right. I think right now, we know we're going to have an election in August and November. It's going to be the governor's election. I
Right.
believe it's possible to have an election in May if there are proposals. So if we wanted to, if we wanted to put the proposal on the ballot for May, then Sylvan Township would pay for that election. So anytime if there's only the community college is the only thing on the ballot, the community college is paying for that election. So, and I think at this time, there's no proposals for the May election.
There are none.
So I think if it was something we would want to do, it would be reasonable to do it either on the primary in August or November general election. I'm sure.
Yes, don't do a standalone.
Right. And that wouldn't be so good. So, it's certainly possible, and we can, write proposal language. You have to have it submitted, so many days before the election. The county clerk office will be very helpful with that if we have questions. So, yeah, we haven't had something on the ballot before, but it's certainly something we could do.
Well,
I definitely think, yes.
it doesn't have to be a millage. We could budget a flat fee every year if you wanted to help contribute.
Has that been done in the past, Kurt?
Well, we do it for WAVE, for example. It's not a millage. We, as a board, decide what's a reasonable number.
Well, and
That's
yeah.
that's the way it was before also. It was just a flat number.
I'm sorry, say that again. How was it before? I thought it was on my tax bill before.
Yeah, as a flat number.
Right.
So
But
the cost per household, if the township, I think, Rod, you figured that out. It was like a crazy amount of money, a lot.
The last time I remember, if you're talking about what it was per household to belong, I feel like a couple of years ago, our county commissioner, Jason Masiewski, came, and he was like the chair of the recycling authority at that time. And for some reason, $23 sticks out in my head, that it would be
It's closer to
$23 a household. Yeah. And that,
Closer
right,
to 30 now.
probably now it would be.
But it's less than 30.
When it was
Yes.
dropped before, it was $25.
Okay. So, yeah, and I wonder, I think, Kurt, that might be something worth exploring, but I think like with WAVE, I don't think anybody pays a millage for WAVE. I think it might be a bit of a different beast in terms of that the recycling authority is funded through millages that come from different places, as opposed to WAVE that gets mostly their funding through federal grants, community contributions, that sort of thing. So, but I'm sure it's something that somebody at the recycling authority or at the county clerk, our county commissioner, Jason, would probably know the answer to that question.
But Sandy, just to echo the sentiment, I agree with you. I mean, a lot of Sylvan Township residents use those bins, and we should be contributing.
Yeah, I agree. We use them a lot at my house, and it yeah, it would feel better.
Mhm.
Right.
So I have a comment regarding, we will clearly be going back to in-person meetings next year at some point, possibly January. So I have been reaching out to figure out what equipment we need to broadcast our meetings. Not necessarily looking for people to be able to zoom in and give public comment, but just so that we can broadcast it on the website. City of Chelsea does it. That's the one I've seen the most, is the City of Chelsea. So I reached out to Gary Muntz, who is tech support for Linden, and he said that we would need a webcam, a laptop, and a microphone. So we would set the webcam up on a tripod in front of the board, and that would be connected to a laptop, and I would assume the microphone would as well. So we have the ARP funds, we already have a portion of those. I think this is definitely something we should invest some of that money in. So we would need that laptop, that webcam, and that microphone. So he was sending me some equipment that he would suggest, and then some contacts for other municipalities that are doing it. There's a whole level. He said you could go up to $8,000 with this equipment, but for us to get started, a couple $100 for that webcam and that microphone, and then we would just have to pick out a laptop. So I definitely want to work on that this month, as we're going to need that. And I think that's important that we would offer that for people to at least be able to view the meetings.
Yeah,
I
I
just-
agree.
I just did a quick figure for you guys, and if we're going by residential families, it would be about 54,000 that would be brought in. And if we went by a per tax bill, it's just a few dollars over 60,000.
Oh. That's for the recycling authority? Is
Yes.
that- Yeah, that's going back to the, okay. All right. All right, very good. Well, thank you, Amanda. And I know we've been talking about this. When we return to in-person, we want to be able to, for people to be able to view the meetings, if you want to public comment, you'll have to come in person, or you always have the option to send your comment to the clerk and she can read it during public comment time for you. But that would be great. And we can use the American Rescue Plan funds, as Amanda said, for making our office COVID ready, or post-COVID ready. I'm not sure what to call it. But Mr. Thal did mention one time on the phone, those would be acceptable expenses. So I believe our Appropriations Act gives the supervisor the ability to spend up to $500 without board approval. I would need to find that money somewhere in the budget, but we would be able to, that's something that we would be able to expend without coming together as a board and voting on something. And hopefully we would be able to at least get the microphone and the camera. We have a laptop, I think that maybe could suffice, but getting one that would be just designated to that purpose would be good also.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks, Amanda, again for the research. Any other comments? Kurt or Rod? No? Okay,
I will
Well,
move
next-
to adjourn.
I will second.
all right. Motion to adjourn at 8:25. And we'll do a roll call vote. Amanda,
Yes.
Sandy? Okay, Kurt,
Yes.
Rod,
Yes.
Kathy, yes. Motion carries. All right. Thank you all.
Good night, everyone.